I've had a few conversations with some people that I've come across in life, whether it's been friends or just people I've met along the way. And we've got into conversations, sometimes about business, sometimes about various different topics. And I'll say something like, oh, like, so do you know so-and-so? This person has a really good newsletter about this. Or do you know this person? They've written a book about it. Or do you know about this podcast? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I get this really like intense response of, oh, like, I hate that person. And for some reason, like, I get taken back every time I hear those statements. Because one, that's just not a typical response that I have. Like, hate is a really, really strong word. Like, there's a lot of energy involved in hating something or someone. And oftentimes I'm like, you hate this person? Like, you don't even know them, you know? And it's interesting because if you've ever heard the statement of hate is just love disguised as anger as one statement, and that word disguise is so true, because hate is actually just a mask for something deeper that goes on. And so I get really curious when I've met somebody who says something like, oh, I hate this person, when they've never even met them. And I have a tendency to dig deeper, because I'm like, oh, like, what is it that you don't like about this person? Or like, I probe just to see, because I'm just curious, like, where that hate's coming from. And oftentimes, and more often than not, even when I've gone through maybe experiences like that, like, there's usually an underlying insecurity, whether it's jealousy because this person has reached a level of success that they're trying to reach, or this person has a large platform and they're trying to build their platform. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's something about what this person has achieved or is experiencing, or is even like character traits. Like, for example, this person is really confident and they actually don't feel confident themselves, and so they just hate that person, instead of actually just kind of going deeper when you feel that way and understanding like why that is. Like, when I have, so let me give you an example of my own personal experiences. So I had a coaching session yesterday, and it's a new coach, and so we're working through vision statements, and this is like on all areas of life. And so I had a vision statement for friends, and it was a very simple statement. It had some descriptive words, and my coach paused. All the words she felt were fine except one, and that was the word like-minded. And even if you've like watched some of my videos so far, I've actually used the word like-minded a few times now in those videos, and it's something that I put a lot of focus on when it comes to my friendships. And she said that it just sounds and it feels a bit, what's the word she used? Conditional. And that made me really reflect, because I'd recently been here in Malta and I had a couple of friends here, and I do find with one friend in particular that I get quite frustrated being around for long periods of time. And I realized it's because, I'm going to air quote this, I hate victim mentality. And so it's not the person, love her to bits. It's like, it's just the mindset drives me a bit crazy, because when it comes to victim mentality, there's a lot of like outward focus and this belief that you can't change your own circumstances. And I just don't resonate with that mindset anymore. And it's interesting because when I reflect on that, about 4 years ago, I was in that exact same mindset. And so those mindsets can change, but I'm not like, it's not something that should be a conditional thing, because people change, I changed, like things change, right? And so I changed like-minded to caring, and yeah, it was just a really interesting thing to reflect on, because that was something that was really causing me a lot of, I don't know, like anguish. I don't know, like it was just a very like, there was a little bit of a battle happening, because with the journey of personal development, you go from victim, where you're pointing to the outside world, which is typically what happens when we claim that we hate things or people or whatever. is because there's a projection of something deeper that goes on within. So like, even in the case of you hate something because you're actually jealous, when actually even that is a mask, because underneath there's a sense of, there's a trigger, that's something that's triggered your sense of self, or triggered your sense of feeling loved, or typically like feeling safe maybe, like those kind of things. And those are like the underlying insecurities that hate is just a mask for, jealousy is just a mask for. And so there's always these like deeper levels when you go back to it, and you realize when it comes to hate culture, because it's such a big thing in our culture. I haven't been on social media really for the last 5 years, and so I'm not really part of that in terms of adding to it on social media. And it really baffles me because I've been on this journey, right? I've done a lot of shadow work, I've done a lot of inner work. And so whenever I'm feeling this like discomfort towards something or someone, I journal about it. The first thing I do, like when that like-minded, when that was brought to my awareness about this kind of focus on like-mindedness and actually having it as a condition for friendships, which like now thinking back, I'm like, wow, I'm really sorry, you know, this, I was putting this kind of pressure on a friendship because I just want them to get there. Like deeper down, it's because I care, right? I care about this person, and I know that being in victim mentality is actually causing a lot of suffering and discomfort, and that mindset is like, it's just creating this experience, and I know because I've been there. But that journey going from victim to what's then a hero's journey, or the hero archetype, let's say, which is basically when you have that call to action, when you no longer want to be in this place of suffering, and you're like, hey, how do I get myself out of this hole? Like, what can I do to help myself in this situation? Where you're now taking matters into your own hands to help yourself, and you're no longer pointing fingers to the outside world, blaming things that are in your circumstances. Like for the first time in my life 4 years ago, I went through a really challenging experience where I was now asked, at that point I was like, why me? Like, I had never asked why me, given I had gone through a whole bunch of experience. But by that point I was like, I've just gone through all of these experiences, and now I'm hit by another like challenging experience. Like, why am I, like, why me? Why am I the one constantly going through these quite extreme experiences, only to see other people seem to kind of, like, everybody got their own challenges, but it's kind of like they're just breezing through it, like they're just fitting in and, you know, getting on with their careers, or getting on with things, and for some reason, like, I just wasn't fitting in. I wasn't having these normal, quote, normal life experiences. And so, yeah, that put me in victim mentality for a while. Then I couldn't understand it. But for a long time, it was causing my own suffering and causing my own misery. And I suffered like deeply in that experience. Like, oh gosh, made me emotional. No, I literally cried like for a long time. And there does come a point where you're just in this really dark place and you're like, nobody's coming for me. I have to get myself out of this. Yeah, and that's the start of your hero journey. And for me, it was deciding to go solo traveling, starting with a volunteering experience in Nepal, where I did 1 month volunteering on a women's empowerment program. And then from there, I literally just like, I booked a one-way ticket. That was my one experience I booked in. So I had somewhere to kind of be, and people that were going to meet me there. And then from there, I just winged it. Like, and I ended up on an amazing journey. And a lot of it was very spiritual. Like, I ended up on a lot of retreats and practicing Qigong. And I sat down for 10 days in a silent meditation. Like, it was a very spiritual journey. However, that is my kind of hero's journey. And after this kind of hero's journey, you end up in this, what they call like a magician archetype, where you realize you really are the creator of your own reality. You can create your life in the way that you want to and you desire. And by the time you have that intention of creating a life that fits you and not the one that's been prescribed to you by society, by parents, by your culture that you've been raised in, by the environment you've been raised in. You're now consciously and intentionally creating this reality that's more suited to you. And that becomes your magician, like your magician archetype, because you're now attracting things into your world and into your life in a very conscious way, because you've healed a lot of the things going through your hero's journey. You're no longer in this victim mentality, so you're not attracting the things that you don't want in life, or not that you're never going to attract challenging experiences. Like, believe me, challenges are always going to come. And it's interesting because when you look at the highlight reel of people's Instagrams, for example, when you see people getting married and like the fancy rings and the fancy dresses and the warm cuddles on that day, like, that's just the highlight reel. And although those things are amazing, there is a light side and a shadow side to absolutely everything. So even if you're looking at the world and other people's experiences from a place of like they must be having an amazing time, they must be having this wonderful experience, and you reflect that on your own life and it makes you feel like a bit awful. But actually everything has a shadow side, everything has a light side. So even if someone's famous and rich, like, they're going to be dealing with like people staring at them down the street, not being able to leave their house without a camera being pointed in their face. Like, there's different challenges for different experiences. And when you design and create the life that you want, look at both the light side and the shadow side that will come with it and decide which challenges you're happy to accept. And sometimes those challenges aren't something that you choose. Like, I didn't choose the health problems that came up. They've just come up. But how I deal with it, I can either look at the shadow side of that experience or I can look at the light side of that experience and navigate which one I want to be, like which side I want to be on. Like, I can choose to dwell on it, feel sorry for myself, be in victim mentality, like, and allow myself to just spiral down into a depression. Or I can look at the light side of it and go, well, okay, this has happened, but there are things that are within my control. And so I'm going to focus on that. And right now, my health is in a good place. And so I'm going to focus on that and keeping it in a good place. And also, like, I choose what I want to envision in life, and I choose to envision a life of good health and happiness and joy. I choose to envision a life of friendships and partners, and I choose to not focus on ill health and like all the things that I could worry about and could focus on that could happen down the line. But the problem is when you focus on those things, especially when you're in that victim mentality, you're focusing on the things that you don't want, and you're just more likely to attract it. So if you're focusing on ill health, you're more likely to attract that. And so when I was going through, I think I'm switching topic a little bit here, but when I was going through those health tests and things like that, like, my mind was playing on me. It was like, oh, I noticed a twitch. And actually, when I went to Bali, I realized I wasn't having these involuntary movements. And actually, when I got back to the UK, it was almost like those movements came back. And I actually realized it because I was wearing a bra that was rising, and I was actually just adjusting the bra strap, like, subconsciously. And because it stopped in Bali, I don't wear bras with summer dresses. I just find dresses that I can get away with not wearing them because I find them really uncomfortable. And so when I'm back in the UK, I'm putting on this like uncomfortable item and my body's adjusting, and I thought I was getting involuntary movements. And that was like, obviously in relation to the Huntington's disease that I've talked about in the previous video. But it's not that, right? It was just, my mind's just playing tricks on me. And so, anyway, I think I've veered off topic a little bit here. But yeah, going back to this sense of hate, there's always this like deeper reasoning and deeper insecurities. And I think we just create a much better world if we looked at those things. And sometimes those things can be challenging to look at and admit to. But I don't know, I found journaling really helps. to just be open and honest, and like you're just journaling your thoughts down and why you're feeling that way. And actually, when you flip it on the other side, that hate could be admiration. Like, you might hate this person, but actually you admire their work. Like, you want to be on that level, and that's something to, it's just that growth journey. And oftentimes these people, they're just like years ahead of the journey than you. Like, they've just had a number of steps before, because maybe they're just older, they've been in the game longer. Like, you can't always compare where you are now to where somebody else is like 10 years ahead. Like, I admire a lot of people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, like, I'm sure you're aware I'm very into personal development at this point, but like, those people are like, I don't know, 10, 20 years in the game, and their followings are huge, and they can attract tens of thousands of people, or, you know, whatever, in arenas or like big conferences. I don't know, like, they've put a hell of a lot of work into what they do, and I admire that, you know? So I'm not going to hate them for it because I'm not there. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? Anyway, that's just, I don't know, I was just reflecting and thinking about those things this morning, and I just thought I'd just share my thoughts on that, and maybe it will help reframe, I don't know, things that might be going on within you. Yeah, I just think we could just work together to make the world a bit of a better place at the moment, because it's intense out there. So I'm gonna go have some food now. See ya.